3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is November 30th, 2020. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
We have a full show today, Carl. There was some news, but something was left off the list that I'm surprised you left off the list.
Ooh, if I had to guess what you're surprised I left off the list, was there some queso-related news this week?
There was no queso-related news.
Okay, that's not true. If I type queso into my Google search for news, there's going to be something.
Is there often?
12 hours ago, Pancheros is having a 12 Days of Pancheros holiday promotion. And you can get queso. Day one, queso on your entree for free. They're literally handing out queso. This is not an ad, but if you want free queso, head to Pancheros.
It sounds like an ad. That sounds delicious, though. But no, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, don't do vegan queso.
Is it even queso at that point?
I don't even know. Anyways, there's a recipe also in the school. It takes you 5 minutes to make vegan queso. It's made out of cashews, Nick.
Okay, Carl. I stumbled upon a link like 5 minutes before we hopped on here, and I couldn't believe that you didn't want to talk about this and rub it in my face. And I'm actually starting to regret bringing it up already.
Well, tell us.
Adam Gretz wrote a piece for Yahoo Sports titled NHL Power Rankings, ranking the NHL general managers. You know who was number 2 on that list, Carl?
If I had to think, probably Joe Sakic?
Joe Sakic is not number 2 on that list.
Oh, where do they have him? Who's number 2?
Steve Yzerman is number 2 on that list.
Really?
You want to know who number 1 on that list is?
Is it Joe Sakic?
It's Joe Sakic.
Oh, look at that. I mean, do you remember when he first took over? Him, Patrick Waugh, this dynamic duo coming back, made the playoffs the first year, everyone's pumped. The second year, less pumped. Terrible season. The Lavalanche, everyone laughing at them. Joe Sakic, a terrible GM. He can't manage to pull off a trade. And now, look at him.
There is no doubt that he has done amazing things with this team over the last several years. But is he a better general manager than Steve Yzerman?
The team that Steve Yzerman started his GMing career with just won a Stanley Cup. But he did not win that Stanley Cup. It took someone else to bring in those pieces to make it happen. And now look at how his team did this year. His Detroit Red Wings, terrible.
No. Look, Steve Yzerman, somebody else didn't come in and bring in the pieces to win that Stanley Cup. Steve Yzerman went to the grocery store and picked up the ingredients. He got his hands dirty in the kitchen, putting them all together. He baked that baby. And then he pulled it out of the oven and said, guys, I gotta go. And then Julien Brisebois came in and he's like, you guys, like, what kind of icing do you like on this cake? Let's just throw some icing on here. And then they won a Stanley Cup.
In my head, he was making a queso. You said icing. I was like, you don't put icing on queso. Sorry, that's not.
Get your head out of the cheese, Carl. Let's get to the show.
Well, I mean, looking at that list now, I pulled it up. The fact that Julien Brisebois is 4th on that list, a little suspect.
Right? I think so.
You can't have both of them on that. Steve Yzerman definitely did the heavy lifting there. But should we make our top 10 maybe next week? Because we've got our top 10 for this week planned. But should it be top 10 general manager moves by Joe Sakic?
Sure, Carl.
I'm just going to not mention it and hope he forgets.
You know what? Why not? So next week we can do top 10 GM moves by Joe Sakic. And then the week after, we can go back like 20 years to the last time these two guys were head to head and do top 10 Steve Yzerman goals against the Colorado Avalanche.
Do we, instead of that, why don't we just replay that video we watched a few years ago? Should we do that instead?
Don't make me swear on the podcast again, Carl. Don't make me do it.
I don't want to have to edit, so we'll do something else. We do have a show this week. We've got some news on some signings, and by some I mean a signing, but we're going to talk about it. We've got some news on not even restarting the season, just starting. We haven't even started a season yet. We are going to talk about what's actually happening with that season. We're going to do a top 10, looking back at summer top 10 rule changes. Rule changes usually happen in the summer in the NHL, so we're going to talk about summer rule changes. And but first, let's go in the way back machine, Nick. To November 30th of last year.
Did we record on November 30th?
No, it was close.
Okay.
We did it was December 2nd.
Okay.
And this is an interesting one. I remember this one quite vividly. This one, you probably don't remember recording this one because you were not here.
And I definitely don't remember recording it.
This was one where it took 3 people to fill the gap left by Nick.
Including you or in addition to you?
There was me plus 3 others.
So 3 people. Okay.
Yeah, well, because there was a hole left by... I'm always here. I'm mostly always here. But anyways, big news that week was the firing of Bill Peters by the Calgary Flames. Which also doesn't seem like it was a year ago. I'm not sure how long ago it seems, but it's not a year.
No, it doesn't feel like... It feels like way longer than a year. But that would have been the second week in a row we were talking about a coach firing.
Exactly, right? Because the previous week was Babcock. But I think in light of what kind of transpired culturally this summer, looking back to that Bill Peters firing, because his was not particularly performance-based. Right, that's not why he was fired by the Flames. He was fired because of comments he made, and that was the Akim Aliu.
That's right.
Story coming to light.
Yeah.
And seeing where we were then and where we are now with the Hockey Diversity Alliance being started, and just the stance that more players are taking, but also like culturally, just like where we're at with race issues. It's weird and interesting to look back and think about that day in November when we were like, yeah, that guy said some racist stuff. Let's fire him.
Yeah, man, so much has happened since then. Like I don't even know where to go with that. That was a year ago.
Do you think that we've made positive change since then? Or the hockey community has made positive change since then?
I don't think that anyone's made positive change, but I think positive change is actively happening. And it's happening slowly. But it's happening. And, we saw a lot. Man, I couldnn even tell you what month it was, the Black Lives Matter protests in the middle of the playoffs. That to me was another milestone in terms of like the hockey culture and how it deals with race and racism. And I think, like the Bill Peters thing was one step. It was a smaller step, but it was a step. I think, the Black Lives Matter protests were another step, probably a bit of a bigger step. So, these things change is happening. Like you said, we now have the Hockey Diversity Alliance. This kind of cultural stuff, this change isn't like a flick of a switch and you take one action or have one meeting and suddenly something somewhere is better. It's ongoing, and it takes all of us thinking about it and working at it to change the way that we think and assume and speak, really.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing where we continue to go with this as we go into this next season, because there's great potential for continued growth, and there's great potential to be so focused on getting back playing hockey that we lose sight of that.
Yeah. And I think, this time next year, when we do this segment of what did we talk about last year, we'll be like, oh yeah, I can't believe that was so long ago. And, here are kind of the things that have happened since then, and we'll be in a different spot. But I think it's hard to point to one thing and say this changed everything.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. It will definitely take a number of small steps from here, or big steps, right? A combination of them. But I look forward to seeing where, as a whole collective, we can go with this, because I think we still need to be making those steps. So, anyways, the other part of that, Alice Mecker joined us, but Matthew Dillner, who is a huge New York Islanders fan, but also one of the producers of the Dale Jr. Download, and works with Dirty Mo Media, who is produces tons of content. He's one of the hosts of it's called Lost Speedways, a show on the Peacock streaming service. And so I just had a lot of fun talking with him about both hockey and NASCAR. And that's what happens when you leave the show, Nick.
That's why I have no memory of that segment.
Yeah, you would not have been here.
Just whoosh, way over my head, probably.
I leave the show and you bring in professional hockey great Aaron Ambrose. You leave the show for a week and I'm bringing in NASCAR media to talk about hockey.
Oh, I'm sure he was great.
It was a good one. So I'm sure that if you think back long and hard, I'm sure you listened.
I'm sure I did too. I listened to a lot of things, Carl.
It was a year ago. So, well, let's talk the Tampa Bay Lightning. As much as we discredited the work that he did in bringing a Stanley Cup to the team, Julian Brisebois did make it very possible for Mikhail Sergachev to stay with the team, signing close the link, a $4.8 million deal to keep him around, $4.8 million in cap space, 3 years. This is a bridge deal, but a pretty expensive bridge deal.
It is, but it's cheap for Sergachev, don't you think? Like, maybe it's expensive on the scale of bridge deals, but I think this player could have gotten much more.
I mean, on an open market, for sure. And I think on a non-COVID season, that could definitely be the case.
It's a low amount for him. I don't know how the Lightning continue to do this.
I've heard something about taxes.
Taxes? What are taxes?
Someone tells me that taxes are lower in Florida, and that's why everyone wants to go there. I don't know. That's why. Actually, I did see. So the Raptors are going to Tampa for this season. Everyone's like, "Good on the Raptors! They're saving that tax money." And then someone tried to say, and no idea. They're like, if you're rich, you can pay less money in Toronto than you do in Tampa. Well, it must be nice to be rich.
I was just gonna say I'm not rich, so I don't know how to start with that problem.
I was gonna say I'm sure that you're paying the Sergachev level of taxes, right? You're getting all those breaks.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we look at where this cap hit drops for this year, and compare it to other players who sign. Like, he's getting $200,000 less than Ryan Pollock. He's getting $900,000 less than, I guess that's not a defenseman, so it's not a great comparison. So this is at, I believe this is Ryan Pollock was, let me double check, aside from, okay, there you go. There's the comp. Anthony D'Angelo got $4.8 million for his extension, which was only 2 years with the Rangers. And when you put it that way, I would much rather Sergachev than Anthony D'Angelo.
Yeah, I've always liked Sergachev. I ended up liking him even more after watching him in these playoffs.
Yeah. And I think he started to, because he definitely had some ups and downs when he first came to Tampa.
He had some ups and downs in Montreal.
Yes. I mean, which is why they were comfortable moving him.
That's right.
They poorly assessed Jonathan Drouin. But I'm very okay with this price, especially, getting a few more years. We're going to see a flat cap for a while now, and it kind of gives them that cost certainty that a team so tight up against the cap needs.
You know what's missing from this offseason, Carl?
A lot.
Drama. There has been no drama. And this is a player who teams could have used to stir up some excitement and create some drama by putting forward an offer sheet.
That would have been fun. I like offer sheets.
Everybody likes offer sheets except for NHL general managers. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. But he signed for 4.8. You don't think he could have gotten 6 on an offer sheet?
I've got good news for you. I mean, who knows when we're going to play, but there is still one very, very juicy restricted free agent sitting out there. His name is Matthew Barzal.
That was gonna be my guess, but I wasn't confident.
And how much money do you think the New York Islanders currently have in cap space?
Oh, $5 million?
It's 3.9.
Oh, so they're gonna have to make a move.
So something's got to give there, right?
Oh, that is a scary thought. I need to go look at their page now. You're renewing some hope here, Carl.
There's some juice there. Because, I mean, there are guys that you could easily move out, but most of these players are either unmovable, looking at you, Andrew Ladd, or pretty new deals that they signed, right? Johnny Boychuk retiring this week does help them out in that situation. That's a big bonus for them, and I'm curious what kind of kickback he gets on that. but that's going to help them be able to make that happen. But there's still got to be more room made for him. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. All right, so there's some hope yet that somebody will stir up some excitement.
Maybe we'll see another player traded, and you just trade a first round pick with them, and that team just buys them out.
That is, I suspect, where this is going, and it's just probably going to be Andrew Ladd,
which is sad because I still have that Andrew Ladd alert on my phone.
Well, you're going to be the first to know when that trade happens.
When that trade goes down, I am going to be the first to know. When he gets called up every time, I'm the first to know. And when he scores, which happens, I am the first to know. I think I know before he does. I definitely know before Mrs. Ladd. That's for sure a thing.
I would think that they don't have news alerts up for every transaction.
Well, that's on them. Where do you think Tampa still has to sign Anthony Cirelli and Eric Chernak. They have even less space. They have 0 cap space right now. So they also have to fit some restricted free agents in. Pierre-Luc Dubois is another big piece that needs to sign. But Columbus has a bit more flexibility there.
Well, hold on. The cap limit is $81.5 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I seeing Tampa's projected cap hit at $83 million?
They've already projected that they're using long-term IR. I'm not sure who's going on there, but someone's got to go. Someone's getting hurt in training camp. Which, I mean, with the short, very quick training camp, that's very likely.
It's probably going to be Stamkos. Poor guy.
That's unfortunately true. Yeah, so we'll see. Pierre-Luc Dubois still yet to sign as well. Columbus has $9 million in cap space, though, so they can very easily fit him in.
Yeah, that should get done.
Yeah. Let's look at what's happened. We finished last week, and one thing crossed my mind almost immediately. Some news broke when we finished the show, and I was thinking back to our top 10 list and thinking of the top 10 most difficult things to get across the border. And we made a mistake.
Well, we didn't at the time. At the time, it was right.
With the information we had, it was correct. However,
that's right.
With information that came to light immediately after the show, the shark should not have been. Did we go shark? No, we went saber-toothed tiger, did we not?
Shark was number one.
Shark one. You're right.
Gotta get it through the boat.
That's
we talked about this.
The water issue.
Keep going.
They are no longer number one. If we were to do that this week, you know what's the number one? A golden knight. You cannot bring a golden knight across the border, and do you know why?
Why?
Because that golden knight very likely is suffering from COVID, as the Vegas Golden Knights have had multiple players in the past week test positive for COVID, joining the Columbus Blue Jackets, who also have that. And I know that never mind, I was gonna make a very deep joke, but it wouldn't have worked. So there you go. 2 teams with multiple players. I believe 4 players per team were reported. Obviously, for privacy sakes, we don't know who. But what we do know is they're trying to open up camp soon, and we've got players and teams struggling to keep that under control already.
Now, are these guys training together? Like, are they kind of catching it together or from each other, or is it just they're out in the community? And
that's what I understood, was that they were together and tested positive for this.
Well, man, this thing is in both Canada and the US on a bit of a surge right now, so it's going to happen some more.
A bit of a surge?
A bit of a surge.
Yeah, I would say a lot of a surge.
Yeah. So it's a scary thought, but I think we've seen some other sports leagues try to play normally with travel, and they've had a lot of players sit out, test positive. I think it's just going to be an unfortunate reality that's going to happen to the NHL too.
I believe the Baltimore Ravens are currently sitting at 18 players this week that were placed on the players and coaches that were tested positive. So that is a lot. And they've already, their game from Thursday has now moved from Thursday to Wednesday. So those are the kinds of things that happen. And that's when you're only playing 1 game a week. I do not understand. This is going to be a situation where, like the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball, where a team could very easily miss multiple weeks, be on the sidelines, and then somehow have to make up those games. And you can't play doubleheaders in hockey.
Yeah, you can't. It's going to be a nightmare for schedules. It's going to be a nightmare for the people who have to figure out the logistics. It's going to be a nightmare for players and coaches and their families.
Yeah. And this is what... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know, man. I know we're going to talk about start time or projected start time, but the longer this thing goes on and the higher the daily case counts get, the more I'm just wait until October. Just wait. We've got to, there's multiple companies who have vaccines on the horizon. Is it worth putting all of this stress and money and figuring out all these logistics. Day in the NHL, it'll be day after day after day. It won't be week after week.
Yeah, and putting those protocols in place. The NBA has their protocols. I don't know if you saw what they have. They have multiple staff members per team responsible for making sure that COVID protocols are followed, checking them. There's a COVID officer on each team, all doing this part to make it possible that they can continue to play, because you can't slip up. And that's what I think it becomes more and more of a reality every week when you see even, public examples. The Denver Broncos had a meeting with 4 dudes who've spent the entire season together. They say that they were separated. They took their masks off. One of them had it, and now all of a sudden 4 quarterbacks are gone and they're playing a wide receiver at quarterback. These are the kinds of things that we, as a hockey team, the Zamboni driver is going to be playing a lot of goalie this year, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be so many weird things. The NHL internally has obviously started these processes and figuring these things out, but externally, we have no idea what they're going to do for how many players can you carry. Because you can't just carry the normal amount. It's not going to work.
No. And you can only control so much. Like, you can control the environment maybe at the arena or the stadium. You can't control what people do when they go home or who they see. So, like, for something like this to work, you need 100% buy-in from 100% of the participants.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an unrealistic ask.
It is. And so there will be cases when the NHL returns.
Yes.
Players will test positive.
Yes.
And one thing that is reassuring is that, at least in the NFL, we haven't seen much like team-to-team transmission during games, which gives me hope that, the Ontario Hockey League's desired plan to still have checking. NFL's tackling, and there's not as much transmission there. So I think from that side, that I don't know the science behind it, but empirically looks pretty okay. But I don't know. We see the World Junior team for Team Canada. They've been practicing in Red Deer. Their training camp got shut down when multiple staff and players tested positive this week. And that's a tournament that's supposed to be starting on December 25th in Alberta. And I'm not sure how that's going to happen right now either.
Well, weren't they supposed to use the Edmonton bubble that's been built?
Yeah. So, do you build that bubble, or just that same like plan and infrastructure and all that stuff?
I assume they've just left most of it up.
Yeah. I guess I never really thought of what had to get left up.
I guess they can't leave everything up. I saw some videos the NHL put up about how they built this bubble, and there was gates, there was security checkpoints, there was the testing area before you enter. There's like a secure walk. They had gates set up between the hotel and the arena.
That is, yes, I do remember that.
So they had a courtyard set up for the players. I assume they're going to put all that back up. They probably haven't changed much inside the arena because there's nothing happening in there.
No concerts, no other events. So they're good to go. From that side, I don't get why the training camp wasn't just held in Edmonton at that arena. Why would you hold it an hour and a half south?
That is a big question mark.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just go to the bubble early?
Yeah. Again, it only takes one person, and it doesn't even have to be, I'm not putting any onus or any blame or anything on these players. I think at some point in time, we realized that this could just happen, right? Like you could do a lot of things to stay safe, and that's still going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So they've suspended their training camp for 2 weeks, and everyone who's tested positive is in a self-quarantine right now.
Yeah. For 10 days.
10 days.
Is that provincially that's the rule. So 10 days and then after first symptoms, once symptoms are gone. So,
but they're going to be having teams fly in from all over the world.
Yeah. There's a lot of, the same number of teams in this tournament. I haven't seen any that are backing out from it.
It's crazy, man. I don't know.
This feels like a very sad conversation we're having. Like it just feels very down right now. But like let's turn to another sad topic. But like the NHL season that's coming. So in light of all of this, the NHL still has not announced anything, and we are 1 month away from January 1st. There's no chance that we start play in 1 month, is there?
No, come on. They'd have to be in training camp right now.
Right? Like, what, you're going to play 0 preseason games? You're going to play just training camp, just play a couple internal scrimmages, and you're good to go?
There's how many teams didn't even play in the bubble series?
It was what?
10?
7?
7? Those guys haven't played hockey since March. You're just going to be like, who needs a training camp? Go play, guys. No, come on.
Yeah.
Those teams were lobbying to have a longer training camp.
Well, they could open now. Here's your long training camp. You get it. But it's very difficult to open a training camp when you don't actually know when you're going to start, right? So right now, I think a lot of teams are planning middle of January is kind of internally, unofficially, when teams are assuming that things will get started. But again, this has been a week where we have heard nothing from the NHL reporting anything about when we'll be starting.
Classic NHL. Keeping everything right against their chest. Don't say nothing to nobody.
But as we talked about last week, you saw some information this week that kind of led some to think that the teams without fans just financially doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, again, before we started recording, we were talking about this. I stumbled across this tweet from Kevin McGran of the Toronto Star, who said it would probably cost each team at least around $150 million to operate without fans for a season. And that factors in payrolls, travel, employees. He says it's believed that some teams have told Bettman they would be financially better off not playing.
And that absolutely makes sense to me. The NHL TV deal is not good enough to hold them up.
That is how much fans mean to this league.
Yeah. If you think about it, let's say the average team pulls in, 15,000 a game?
15,000 fans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On average?
Sure.
Right? Let's say, and then 40 home games, that's 600,000 fans through the door every season. If we're looking at, 150 million, that's an average price of, quick math's hard right now, but it's, 150 million divided by 600,000 works out to a pretty big number.
Well, we all have these things in our pockets now called phones, and they have calculators on them.
That's an average ticket price of $250. That's an average revenue of $250 per person coming through the gate, which does not seem unreasonable at all.
No.
Right? Like, between, you've got your suites, which are going to bump it up, right? If you're certainly in other areas in the world, it costs less, but like here, you can't get into a game for less than, $30 is the cheapest ticket you can get. And then there's some that are ranging $500-$600. And then you've got drinks, you've got concessions, you've got everything else happening there. Absolutely. 150 million a team sounds very reasonable. So I don't know. It seems very unlikely, but until the NHL comes out and gives us some more information, we kind of just have to sit and wait. That's the state of the world right now. We sit and wait, and we literally take our lives week by week. And we do nothing with them. We sit at home.
Yeah, exactly.
We literally just sit and we stare at things and we wait. But you don't have to wait long. We'll be back with our top 10. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back on the other side. Now that I'm glad that we finished talking about all that sad, gloomy stuff, because it is time for the summer top 10 list.
The summer top 10 list.
Top 10 list.
What a great tune.
I'm so grateful every time we listen to it for Mr. Hicks for putting that together for us. This week, our top 10, our summer top 10 list looks back at top 10 rule changes. This one was actually inspired by a listener / friend of the show / really just guy who does a lot for the show. Mr. Mike Laybourne suggested that we look into some things regarding rule changes. And I thought, you know what, that's a good one because there's been so many rule changes in the NHL.
The game of hockey as it is today versus when the NHL started, very, very different.
Incredibly. So we've procured a list. Now, do we want to just take the top 10 sets? Because this breaks it down into annual, each set of rule changes kind of breaks them down into chunks. So we just want to take the last 10 and dive into those and see which ones we want to do.
That seems like a good way to go about it. I would like to give a quick shout out to some of the old rules, like introducing the forward pass, allowing goalies to drop onto the ice. Those both used to be penalties, and changing from 30-minute halves to 3 20-minute periods.
Yeah, when you think back, I mean, when did those rule changes take place?
Not even the 20s, the 10s.
So the last time we had a pandemic, goalies weren't allowed to drop to the ice. That's how long it's been.
That's how long it's been.
It's been one pandemic ago. Imagine what the next pandemic, what the game of hockey is going to look like.
Goalies are going to be allowed to fly. The next pandemic, it's going to be a penalty again if you touch the ice.
And the nets are up in the rafters.
That's right.
We all look up. Actually, we all the fans would mostly look out, which is even better.
Are we just talking about are we just making up Quidditch right now?
I'm not a nerd, so no, but
okay, sorry, Carl. Your glasses are fogging up.
Yep, it's true. They are. All right. So we're looking back. These are rule changes. The 10th set of rule changes. This was the 1996-1997 season. Is the rule change that we're going to cap it at. So these are rule changes in the last 13 seasons. And it seems like a good amount of time because we can see some of the changes. And by 13, I mean 23. I used one of those devices I have in my pocket to do math for me real quick here.
Great.
23 years.
How many teams were in the league at this point? 27?
Was it 27? That sounds about right. Yeah.
I think it was 27. Anyways,
let's talk. A lot of these kind of they put in one rule and then next year they kind of take it that next step. So a lot of these kind of feed off each other. Do we want to just very quickly run through them all?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my very quick version of it. 96, 97, longer sticks. As well, no tag ups on offside. That was gone. 98, 99, 2 referee was allowed for some reason for 20 regular season games. They also moved the goal line away from the end board, so they moved it further from the back. They also extended the goal crease beyond the posts that year. More 2-referee system the next season. And then this is when they revised the crease rule to implement a no harm, no foul, no video review standard. As well.
Wonder why they did that.
There might have been a thing that happened the year before that really encouraged that one to happen. They also they brought in the loser point for overtime and the tie. So loser point happened. Then next year, everyone gets the 2-referee system all the time. It only took them 3 years. Hurry up, face off, and line change rules were brought in the next season. Then one that still not entirely sure why this was the thing that they decided. Home colors road whites was a rule that went into place that year for jerseys. They also made a maximum length of goalie pads. Again, not sure what goalie did really well in a playoff performance to make that rule happen, but that happened. Then the year after that was the big set. This was the post-lockout rules. 2004, 2005. We've got the trapezoid was brought in, so goalies can't play the puck in the corner. The goal line was moved again. They moved the blue line. They brought back tag up offsides. They made it so that you cannot, after you ice the puck, you cannot change a player. They brought in modified the instigator rule. They also limited even more the size of goalie equipment. And they brought in the shootout.
Boo.
I think we know what set of rules is going to be last.
Terrible.
Lastly, we've got 3 more. Hit to the head. Rules changed. That was only 2011 that changed, by the way.
It's crazy, eh? It feels very late, doesn't it?
It does. When you think that was like 10 years ago, they put that in place. Yikes. Then we went to 3-on-3 overtime in 2015, 2016. And lastly, moving into this last season, the changes to video review are the big ones, changing tiebreakers in playoff standings. And the lastly, minor penalty for someone who plays without a helmet. So some more changes for head injuries. So is there any that stand out to you? I mean, we're going to try to let's try to do it as do we want to just do it as a whole year's set of changes?
I think so. I think we do it by year. But hold on, did I miss one here? Where did the no contact icing come into play? That wasn't that long ago.
You're right. I don't see that on this list.
That's weird, isn't it? Okay, anyways, that's fine. I think that was... I don't remember how long ago that was, but I thought it was within the last 10 years, but...
Yeah. In 1937, icing was brought in, but I do not see team that ices the puck. Yeah, I'm not sure when that was. Anyways,
that's fine. There. I did like that rule, actually. I hated it at first, and then after watching it a bit, I was like, this is way better.
Yeah. I don't need someone barreling headfirst into the boards.
That's right.
So as much as you boo the rule change that brought in the shootout, I like a lot of the other things in that, right?
Yeah, the shootout drags it down for sure. Where do you stand on the trapezoid?
I also don't like the trapezoid.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think we need to save players. I mean, the helmet rule speaks the opposite of this, but in a non-safety way, I don't think we need to save players from themselves. If a goalie wants to go out there and Mike Smith wants to just hang out in that corner the entire game, go nuts.
I think it makes for a more entertaining game when goalies leave the net.
I think so. More chaos happens. Sports is fun when there's chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, with both the shootout and the trapezoid, then, is the post-lockout 2005 set of rule changes coming in at number 10?
It's pretty bad, but if I look at the year before that, the 2003-2004 changes, to me, like as a viewer and fan of the game, home teams to wear basic colored uniforms and maximum length of the goalie pads does nothing for me. I don't care. Like that to me is nothing.
Well, I greatly dislike the fact that teams, and the NHL started to loosen up with it. We saw that last year. The Hurricanes were able to wear road or whites at home, or actually wore their colored third jerseys on the road. I'm very okay with teams allowed for creativity.
Yeah, but these set of rules didn't really change the game and the way it was played in any way.
I think the goalie pads did. That J.S. Jaguar era, when goalie equipment was getting huge, really was getting out of hand.
Is this a noticeable rule change, though?
I think so. I think when you see the goalie like pads and equipment changing, even this year we saw scoring go up with a minor tweak to goalie size. So, I think that is a pretty substantial change.
Okay. I'm just looking at some of these others to see if they qualify for number 10. 2 referee system. I don't know why that took 3 years to do.
I was going to say that I would be very okay with it taking, just put that last because that took so long for them to fully implement.
2000-2001 set?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Because it took you so long to figure out how to implement 2 referees, which I think I'm very okay with that rule change happening. Just not that long.
Yeah. I remember watching hockey when it was only 1 referee. I do not remember any seasons where it was only half 1 referee and half 2.
Yeah, that seems lost on me. It also seems like a disaster.
It's just so weird.
It's the most NHL way to do it, though. Let's test it up. Like now, we just test things in the AHL, which is a much better way to do it. Right?
It is way better.
Let's let them try it for a year, and if it works for them, sure, it'll work for us.
So, with number 10 being the 2 referees being fully implemented, is number 9 our 2005-2006 rule set?
I think so. So that rule set coming in number 9 is the trapezoid. It's no 2-line pass, which I'm fine with that being a rule that's gone. But the biggest one is the shootout. The shootout
brutal.
Does not add much joy to my life.
It's brutal. You know what was a good rule though? 3-on-3 overtime.
They saved it. Now they just need to extend it.
That's it.
Just do that forever.
Yeah. Totally agree.
During this time is not the time to be saying, hey, let's just play overtime forever. Can we just do that during the regular season? I think right now with like roster size being an issue in this next season, maybe we won't do that, but I hope so.
Okay, so we've got our number 9.
Thank goodness. Good riddance shootout. I wish we could take that forever. What do we think? I mean, I'm very okay with the rules regarding hits to the head. I think that's good. I like the hurry up line change.
Yeah, I like that too.
Do we want... I've got 2 in my head. One is the one that you suggested, the jerseys.
Yeah.
The other one that sticks out to me is a rule that's literally been put back. We took up tag up offsides, and now it's legal again. We also shortened stick length.
We increase.
Oh, we increased stick length, which seems like a fine rule.
Is that the year that Zdeno Chara was drafted?
I think that's probably the Chara rule. 1996? Is that it?
He was drafted in... Oh, man, quick Wikipedia didn't tell... Yeah, 1996.
There you go. So that's the Chara rule. We got a Chara rule, and we got tag up offsides removed.
I'm okay with number 8 being the jerseys.
Jerseys? Yeah, I can get behind that. The jersey rule's stupid. NHL, lean in to letting your teams have more creativity. Home team gets to pick if they want to wear color jerseys or white jerseys. And from there, especially now, right? You think your Red Wings are going to take that retro reversal jersey and not wear it at home?
Oh, they have to.
I mean, you'd think, but it's all white. So technically, with this rule that we're now saying is number 8, couldn't do it.
Terrible. Okay, what was the other one that you were thinking for there?
I was thinking 96, 97. Literally, I mean, I'm fine with Char getting to play with like a normal size stick for him. But getting rid of the take up offside. I like that. Like it makes it so that you can keep playing instead of having to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they would get rid of that. Why slow the game down?
I don't know. Being able to, if the puck goes in, right? Right now, I think of it a lot of times where you see a team like dump the puck in on a change and do that. Instead, now they would just like cycle the neutral zone and try to bring it in, which is going to lead to way more turnovers. And I don't really just want to see a team slowly wait for a guy to get into the zone.
Yeah. Okay. So set that as number 7. I agree. Okay.
Now, we've got 2 of them where they have. There's the first time, 98-99, they first introduced the 2-referee system.
Yeah.
We can look at 99-2000 as the year that they brought in the crease review. We've got hurry up, face-offs, hits to the head.
I just like this crease review that they've got in quotations: no harm, no foul, no video review standard. Like, what? Can you explain to me how this rule works now, the way they've written it in?
Oh, I think this is very much changed from what it was. If you just put that, no harm, no foul, no video review into Twitter or into a Google search, you get some interesting results.
Not gonna do that.
Yeah, I did it without safe search on. I just did that in like regular non-incognito mode because I live life dangerously. Turns out nothing too inappropriate. So that's
okay. Good. I'm happy for you.
But I think it's because that was after the Sabres Stars series, right? That's what predicated this rule change.
Yes.
And from what I'm looking at here, to say, like, they really did not want video review in this era. There was very little of it happening. And now we've gone to a point in time where we want to video review everything.
Every play.
Yeah. The amount of times where it's like, all of a sudden a goal is scored and then we go back 2 minutes and it's like, oh, that play was actually offside.
They've literally put cameras in the boards now to measure whether players are offside.
Yeah. I mean, we are still using a very terrible camera and like zooming in from across the ice to tell if it was a skate blade or a shadow. Like that's what we're doing right now. That's the kind of minutia we've dove into. Is that a shadow or is that a skate? How can we get around that? Put lights on the bottom of skates.
That would actually look pretty cool.
Some neons on there?
Yeah, if they match the color of the jerseys.
Those new, like, bright green Dallas Stars jerseys with some neon lights on the bottom.
It looked pretty cool. It would look like they're floating across the ice.
It would. We could even, just turn off the lights in the arena, save money, save some of that $150 million.
Bring back the glowing puck.
Bring back the glowing puck. I think we got a plan.
It's a winning combination.
All it takes is just invest in some 50-cent LEDs to put on the bottom of the tape.
So are we saying that the crease rule is going to be our number 6 here? Some other rules that change that year are 4-on-4 overtime and the loser point.
Yeah, I'm very okay with putting the loser point in at 6. If anything, it should be even lower.
I hate the loser point.
The loser point is a stupid rule. It's made. I mean, I get the fact it's made playoff races tighter, but you lost.
Yeah, why are we giving points to people who lost?
Right. The only thing I'm fine with is I would actually be in favor at this point in time of the NHL switching to a 3-point system. You win in regulation, you get 3 points, and then if you win in overtime, you get 2. You lose in overtime, you get 1. You lose in regulation, you get 0. That would actually be my favorite point system.
I'm okay with that. In that scenario, you keep the loser point.
Right. But every game, you don't have these 3-point games that all of a sudden make... And I know that it shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but the fact that 500 hockey is an irrelevant stat, like a team above 500 is meaningless in the NHL.
Yeah.
30% of the league is below 500. It's ridiculous. I'm very okay with putting 1999 in here. We've got a crease rule. We've got a loser point. Good riddance.
Good. Number 6. Okay, next we got number 5.
Oh.
Number 5. I'm just reading 98, 99. They started the 2-referee system. The goal line moved to 13 feet from the end boards. So they increased the space behind the nets. No. Am I reading that wrong?
No, they increased it.
They increased the space behind the nets. The goal crease grew to go beyond the goal post. That's it.
Yeah. And I do like the extension of the crease beyond the net. If we, especially at that time, with the crease being like the sacred space of the goalie, I think saying that the goalie only gets the space in front of the net just doesn't seem like a realistic thing. If you're trying to hold a post, or you're trying to cut down on an angle, it seems reasonable. But at the same time, that's also a thing that's going to decrease scoring, which now the NHL is doing as much as it can to increase it. So if you want to increase scoring, just shrink the crease.
Shrink the crease.
So I can look at this both ways. I think for the goalies, it's great. It makes logical sense. There's less issues with it, but if we want to just keep them penned in front of the net, this is a good way to do it.
I mean, I'm looking at that one versus the other 4 that we still have on here. And look, man, we got to talk about 2015-16 at some point. Because that year, 3-on-3 overtime, but coach's challenge.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about it now.
I guess the question is, where do we fall on this coach's challenge? Because we both said we love the 3-on-3 overtime. Should have been implemented much sooner.
Yeah, agreed.
Where are you at on the coach's challenge?
I like it. I wish that there was less. Here's the things that I think should be reviewable. I think that you should be able to have. I think anything should be reviewable. I think you get the 1 challenge per game, right? Infinite corrections, though. I don't get the fact of you only get 2, right? And then, if you're wrong, it's gone. You don't get more. But if the refs keep making mistakes and you keep catching them on it, keep letting them fix it. And I think goals should be automatically reviewed by the league.
Right.
Other than that, that's it. And I'm sure that I'll probably think of an example of when, a penalty that shouldn't be reviewed, right? But I think, you wanna complain that the ref incorrectly called a high stick or missed a high stick? Go for it, right? A rule was missed, challenge it.
So I like it more now. I think when it was first introduced in 15-16, it was taken advantage of and it really slowed the game down. But now that they've added the minor penalty if your challenge is wrong on certain of the rules, I think it's made it better. It's certainly made coaches stop and think about whether it's worth them challenging it.
Yeah, I agree. Which definitely tells me that rule change wise for video review, the 2019 video changes from this past season trump the ones from 2015-16.
I would agree. Yeah.
So do we want 2015 in here? Like, is the video review dragging down 3-on-3 that much for you?
No. 3-on-3 is too exciting.
Okay.
It's too exciting.
Let's put in here. I'm gonna propose we put in here the
98.99.
98.99, where they increased the creases and they started the 2-referee system.
Yeah. So increased creases, and that was also the video review, or the crease foot Brett Hull.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got 4 years left. 96. The 90s are done. We're done with the 90s. Here's what we got left. We've got hurry up face-offs.
Yeah.
And line change rules. Hit to the head.
Yeah.
3-on-3 overtime.
Yeah.
And video review. And the recent changes to video review.
Yes.
Those are our 4 left.
See, this is where it's getting tight.
I think the hurry up face-offs, while I like it, and those line change rules of like the home team has a certain amount of time than the other one, I think that the impact on the game generally is fairly small compared to what we have for like the reviews and the 3-on-3 and some of those hit to the head rules that have really seen the game change. I think from that side, I would probably suggest that one in F4 just from like scope of impact.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning to. I really like that rule change, but relative to what we have left to rank here, you're right. It's much lower on the impact level of the game.
I do think in general, I am in favor of more rules that limit coaches' abilities to do like coaching or like line changes based on like some sort of penalty that you've received, right? So like you ice the puck, you don't get a line change.
Yeah.
You take a penalty, the face-off comes back to your end. Things like that. I mean, I'm in favor. You cheat on the face-off twice, you get a delay game penalty. Like some of those things, I'm very much in favor of that kind of realm of penalties.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that stuff too.
All right.
Keep everybody sharp.
So according to us, the best rule changes are the last 3 sets of rule changes, the 3 most recent. So as much as we might poo-poo a lot of what the NHL does, we don't hate what they're doing recently.
We like the direction they're heading, at least in terms of management of the on-ice game.
Yeah. Well, what do you... Got hits to the head, 3-on-3, and like a video review revamp if I were to kind of group them into 3 categories. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking number 3 would be the video review revamp. Because that to me is more like an amendment to a previous rule. Like, okay, we tried that last thing. It worked. It didn't work quite perfectly. So let's just make these tweaks and it'll work better.
Yeah. So again, kind of more minor changes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tweaking a rule that they felt worked well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine doing that, to put the tweak in there. And then...
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So then, and I think safety-wise, I mean, the hits to the head rules, big changes there, right? We've seen in the last while more, less, more of a thought from players to actually like proactively avoid some of those situations. And we've seen concussions drop. We've seen some of those larger injuries happen. And I personally think that I enjoy the game with the way that it's being played right now.
This is definitely part of the shift to away from like that enforcement style hockey towards more skill and finesse and speed. And I don't think hockey's ever been as exciting as it is right now.
No, I mean, again, there could be more times for chaos because when you have a line brawl for that moment, yes, that even I will say that that's exciting to see, right? You see that happening and you're standing up, you're paying attention, but consistent on ice product, this is better.
And then I'm always for something that puts as a priority the health of and safety of the players, because it was getting out of control. They had to do something.
Yeah. And putting some of those people, we saw Brendan Shanahan in there. I don't fully agree with George Peros in there right now. Seems like a weird choice, but they've had a lot of very good people in charge and even behind the scenes doing a really good job. I think those head contact rules is the number one change for me.
I agree, Carl.
And then 3-on-3 overtime follows up a very
number
close
2.
second.
3-on-3 overtime suffers from the coach's challenge rule as it first came into life, in my opinion.
That's fair. Well, and especially when you all of a sudden have a challenge in overtime. It's like we had this really quick, really fast-paced thing, and now we're going to stop it for longer than the literal overtime is to review something.
Do you remember how when they first started reviewing, how long it would take? Like the play would be dead for minutes at a time.
No, it would be
while
like
they tried to figure this out.
At least 5 minutes for them to try to review something on their terrible little tablets that they gave them.
Yeah.
It's not good.
So I'm glad they figured it out.
Yeah, glad for those changes. But there you go. Number one rule change in the last 2 decades plus was the changes to hits to the head and contact there. That's our top 10. Let us know what your favorite rule change has been over the last while. Because this was, not as Nick pointed out, not a full comprehensive list of all rule changes in the last while. You might have one that was not on this list. Let us know. You can let us know at Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter with the number 4, thefourthlinepodcast.com. Mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com as well. You can find at the website, you can find where we will be. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the Full Press Radio app, and wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there for you. We'll be back next week where maybe there will be news, but if not, we'll be talking about the top 10 GM moves by Joe Sakic. I did not forget that, Nick. We will be talking about that next week. I might even write it down. Who knows? But we'll be talking. If you, like Mike, who had an idea or a suggestion about a top 10, if you have a suggestion for a top 10, let us know, and we will see if we also like the idea. And if we do, we'll go with it. If not, we'll be back with something else or Joe Sakic. So many choices, Nick. So many choices. We'll see you next week.
Time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Thank goodness hockey players can use the forward pass. And if you think Sakic's a better GM, then you can kiss my beep.